Hey, I'm going to talk a little bit about creative thinking and connecting dots. And the reason for that is because a lot of times I get kind of in a conversation with somebody and somebody asks, like, what do you actually do? Right? And it's always a little bit tricky for me to answer that question, not in the sense of I help actors or filmmakers, build six-figure businesses, or I help, businesses grow through marketing and media production, or I make movies. Like, I do a lot of things, right? But what do I do as a human, as an individual, as a producer, a business owner, a marketer? And, I've been giving that a lot of thought lately, and it's really connecting dots and kind of innovating and coming up with solutions, really. That's really what I do for the most part. It's important to understand and define that in a sense, because for everybody that I'm helping, or if you're out there and we haven't met yet and you're just introducing yourself to the world of maybe producing or media business ownership or video production, filmmaking, or entrepreneurship in general, and you're coming across this video somehow, this is the number one most valuable thing, I think, that will actually help you be successful over the long term. And this is not some sort of a technique or a system that you can follow, a blueprint that will lead you to six, seven, eight figure results or success in this or that festivals or theatrical release of your film or whatever. But what it will do is it will help you unlock a fundamental key or asset that you already have in you, but maybe just by bringing attention to it, you can kind of expand on it and create whatever your version of this is. Because I have found that time and time again, it's the way of thinking, and it's this sort of muscle that I've trained myself over the years, just out of basically necessity, um, to 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 think this way and to kind of like look for these dots to connect and things to create and avenues to go down that are potentially the paths less traveled, which oftentimes can lead into kind of uncomfortable areas or areas that are sort of not charted, and things that are a little bit less certain, but oftentimes do end up coming back and rendering some sort of a unique result, or just make something that kind of works. Because here's the thing: when you are in the media production industry in any way, whether it's product development, meaning you're doing movies, you're creating films and you're selling them, or you're working with studios and streamers or independent aggregators to get those to the public, or you're creating content for businesses or influencers or yourself, whatever it is that you're doing, it's important to remember that none of it is for you. You reap the benefits of whatever the success or the failure, not that that's beneficial, but like, you reap the consequences of the success and the failure of it. But the success and the failure of it is really determined by the resonance with the audience, or the audience, that the people on the other end, the consumer of the video or film. And so the reason I'm saying that is because you need to think not in a sense of, well, what's out there that people are watching, or what's out there that's working, and how can I do that. If you truly want to thrive, like succeed and be not everybody wants to be a leader, but like, if you want to be independently recognized and talent, or recognized and successful in your field, and not somebody who just blends into the masses and sort of skips along their career somewhere in the middle, not ever really making it, but not ever really completely failing either. That's okay too. But I'm talking about people who want to rise above the noise and build up true success, because we do really just have this, as far as we know at the moment, we have this one opportunity to experience life that we've been given here. So that we should do our best to get the most out of it. And there's so much that we can do, and there's so much that's holding us back that just has to do with the way we think. So that's what this is about. And the way, how do I begin this and keep it concise? really, I guess what you want to start doing is you really have to train your muscle to not just be observant to things, situations, trends, people, and everything around you. Not just be a student of the world and the times. And I don't mean you have to consume a lot of news. I barely watch the news. I'm not very plugged in pop culture. I honestly don't even really, watch that many movies and TV. And it's not because I have something against it. And people find it ironic that I'm in production and I'm a PGA producer and I don't actually really watch a lot of movies or television. I enjoy making them, and I have a lot of things that I love doing now as a middle-aged adult with a family and children, and running my businesses. That it's not that I don't have time to do it. I do. I would have time to watch a lot of movies and stuff if I really chose to prioritize that. But there's so many other things that fulfill me in so many ways that I do, that kind of push the movies and consumption of product by others down. And some might think that that's not good. And when it's award season, I get screeners and I get all the for your consideration things and stuff. I will look at what's winning. I'll watch an episode of a show and just kind of see what's going on there. But I kind of watch films for homework, not for entertainment. And then once in a while, I'll see a movie or something that really does just excite me and is a good film, like The Whale I went to see again, that was at a for your consideration screener for the I think either the Academy Awards or at some point before that. So I don't want to digress too much, but all that to say, I'm not really that big of a consumer of what I actually do, but I am observant, and I try to see what sort of the trends are that are sort of going on, more or less, how storytelling is maybe evolving over time. So by looking at an independent film and a big film of the current award season, and then a few years back, you can kind of see the differences in trends and stuff, and all that is not something that you need to now like kind of remember and do. It's just I'm trying to illustrate also the point that this evolves over time, and it kind of it's one of those things that you have to be patient with and just not figure out right now, but start the process of teaching yourself how to think creatively and how to innovate and how to connect dots. And now, what is innovation? Innovation is really looking for solutions that are simpler or better than the solution that already exists, or it somehow creates a disruptive mechanism for something that previously didn't exist. So that could be anything from taking films that were only screened on through projectors and film strips at movie theaters, and creating the technology to have a video cassette that you take home, and then eventually innovating from there onto DVDs, which brought the quality up and made it smaller and lighter, easier to ship, easier to buy, eventually all the way to digital, where we don't need any physical mediums at all. So Netflix was a very innovative business because they came in and basically gave the consumer an option to not leave the house to go get home videos, and then eventually we're watching movies and stuff on our phones, which years ago, not that long ago actually, you wouldn't have even thought was possible. So the innovation took us here. And in film, innovative films are films that explore storytelling in ways that previously was difficult. Cameron's very good at this. A lot of Nolan films and high budget, sci-fi and the Marvel movies, they're very innovative films in that the things that they use and the technologies and art and everything that they combine to create these really realistic new massive worlds and experiences, very innovative. So the reason I'm now harping on innovation is because that's one of the points. And I guess if I had to kind of break it up into a couple of points, there would be three. There would be innovation, consistency, and continuously searching for dots. And then the last point was when times are right, connecting those dots. It just kind of happens naturally, but this is what I mean. Innovation. In life, everything you do, eating, driving your car, you know, going on the internet, calling people, talking. I have a tendency to want to analyze everything that we do for a couple of things because I've gotten very aware of my time and where I spend it. I analyze everything for the importance of me doing this task, how much I enjoy the task, and whether I need to be doing it or not. And if I don't need to be doing, what can I do to not do it or replace myself in doing that? Or is there an easier way to do it? Those 5 kind of points, and they just sort of at this point naturally come up with anything, just sort of make me constantly look for more simplified or easier or less time consuming ways to do things. And not out of laziness, more out of sort of efficiency. And not that I feel like you have to be this super efficient machine, because like taking a walk through my neighborhood, I'm not going to do that in 15 minutes because taking an hour long walk, it takes too long. The walk is not, the physical part is only a part of why I walk. I walk to also clear my head. So I'm talking about things that I don't really want to or have to be doing, preparing meals, dealing with emails, client interactions, conversations, educating my students, running my teams, creating content, managing all the content on hardware, like where do we store all this stuff, backups, all of that stuff. Like I'm constantly thinking, well, why does this take so long, and why is that so cumbersome, and does this really need to be this way, and can we change that, and isn't there a better way to do this? So if you're constantly thinking that way, and not necessarily acting on everything, but thinking about that, you're sort of training your head to constantly be looking for more efficient ways to do things. So that's step number 1 in your ability to become a really good sort of producer and business owner over time, that sort of leverages creative thinking, right? Because you're constantly questioning the way things are being done. That's number 1. And this can be in society too. Like I just have this thing where I always empathize with both sides of anything, and I try to make it an exercise to, no matter how horrible a crime, no matter how disastrous an occasion, no matter how crazy something was or seems on the surface, I always try to go past the headline and look deeper, not so that I can empathize with, for instance, Vladimir Putin, who's attacking Ukraine basically for a year now, and the way he's going about it. I always wonder, well, what's the other side here? Why? And I try to think about the entire structure on the other side, not just from a Westerner's perspective on a dictator who's attacking a country. Yes, all of it's wrong. Like, all of it should not happen. It's all wrong. But I try to figure out, like, there is a reason, and there is a country there, and there is a military force, and there is a population that's, supporting and acting on that in a sense. So I just try to understand it to give me more perspective from every side. Again, it doesn't mean I agree with both sides, but I want the perspective and I want to understand it. And then when I can say, okay, I see how under this set of circumstances, this kind of person who's had this kind of an upbringing would do something like that, because it makes sense in the context of their manifestation of reality. So that gives me a clear picture on both sides, which means I can understand more, what their thought process might be. Now, how does this help when you're doing movies, when you're doing commercials and stuff? Well, that kind of an empathetic thought process of always wondering on the other side, well, what was the criminal going through, or what was the person being prosecuted here doing, thinking or feeling, and why? Whenever you dig into that, you open up a story from both ends and resonance on both ends, and you have the ability as a producer at the highest level, as basically the creator, the manifester of this project, you can decide now who and how you want it to resonate with, and how you want to educate one side on the other if you do want to add educational value to it. So this allows you to create messaging that doesn't preach to the choir, and especially in faith-based films or cause-driven media, advocacy films, charities or social impact organizations who want to perpetuate a movement or cause change in some way. One of their biggest issues or mistakes, in my personal opinion, has always been that they're very good at producing media and content and messaging that preaches to the choir and sort of has a almost confrontational approach to whoever's not on that side. So like, you're wrong, and it's not that they're always just saying, well, you're wrong and we're right, but it's like, come to us, think like us, look at what we have, the key. And that makes them feel really good. But if you don't understand fully, truly, who you're talking to and why, that and you generalize the other side, and that let's say you're of a certain faith, and you're trying to reach people who are atheists and Christians and Buddhists and Jews and Muslims or whatever, and you're trying to get them to think your way. Now, each one of those will have different core concerns or questions, I guess, that you might have to approach with different angles for getting them to even listen to you and not just put a block up right away. So it's very important, even in your interpersonal skills and your discussions with your spouse and partners and things, to have that ability to be able to sense the other person's disposition or think about the other person's disposition and carry a conversation and messaging in a way that's conducive, not succumbing to their opinion and making them just like, oh yeah, sure, anything you say. That's not good either, because then you can't get your thought across. But to invite conversation and dialogue in a way that that understands where they're at and sort of uses what to add to their knowledge base in a way that doesn't make them feel intimidated or cornered or somehow not heard. That usually will cause people to not want to listen to something in the first place. And you see this in political races and stuff, where people just are blaming the other side for things. Well, you're going to have a hard time converting people who are already on that other side, because you're essentially attacking them too. So that's all I'm going to say there. Innovation is always looking for interesting, new, easier, shorter, better, more efficient ways to do everything. Empathetic dialogue, empathy, I guess, would be the word that sums it up. Consideration of both sides, and really deep diving into conscious communication. What is it that you're really saying? What are they saying? What's the core? What do they mean by this kind of analytical type of way of understanding in a conversation? And lastly, connecting dots. Now, gathering dots, I should say. Everywhere you go, everything you do, everyone you get to know, learn one thing about them. Now, this is a fun little practice. If you just you meet somebody, you go, hey Bob, hey John, how you been? Bob, no, not how you been, but who are you? What do you do? Okay, great. Ask one deeper question. Oh, I'm a so and so. I'm a plastic surgeon. You meet somebody. Amazing. What kind of plastic surgery do you do? Wow, really? Okay. How did you come to specialize in that? What's your, do you have your own practice? Do you work for a business or whatever? You got a family? What else do you do? Just kind of learn stuff about people, whether they're in your industry or not. Because a lot of people in this industry and media and stuff that, you tend to want to just kind of network with people who you feel like can help you. So if you find a producer or a casting director, if you're an actor or whatever, or somebody who's in the media industry, you want to kind of talk to them and, ooh, maybe they could invest in a project, or maybe they could help me get a project off the ground. And that's a very kind of self-centered way to go about things and network. So you're always going to be meeting people with this sort of kind of vibe about you that you just sort of want something from them. And it also trains your brain to kind of be a little over opportunistic, which, you do have to have that in your head. There's a balance. You shouldn't waste your time talking to or consciously networking with people in areas that have absolutely nothing to do with what you're interested in doing. So if you're like looking for clients for your media business and you focus on doing demo reels for actors, going to like real estate networking events, where you're going to get introduced to a bunch of realtors, doesn't really benefit you there. But if you were at a real estate event, you could ask a lot of people there about where they serve, what market and how, and what their passions are and things, and then you might end up walking away with a few business cards and not doing anything with that. And this is where I mean collect dots so that you can later on connect them. Somehow this stuff stays in my head and it comes out when it's important, but I'm sure you could have a more structured system and actually write things down. This person said this and I met this person here and all that. You could have a database. In my case, what ends up happening is I take somebody's information, we meet, we talk, it's like, great, nice to meet you. We might not talk ever again. We might not communicate for a year, 2 years, a month. But as I go through life, suddenly I'll have another conversation, or I'll start working on a project over here. And when I look at that project and I start analyzing it, whether it's a commercial or like, we did a thing for Crayola where we, had to bring in a bunch of kids and some goofy, funny people. And, it was kind of like a fun little YouTube show that we did for them. And suddenly, when I'm producing this thing and I'm sitting down, I'm thinking, okay, what are all the things that we need for this? Like, we needed a tarantula, and a snake, and a dog, and, a comedian who could play a chicken, and like a really goofy dude that almost had like a bit of a Jim Carrey vibe. And we needed somebody to build a set that was, not a huge budget, so a normal crew to build it would have probably been a bit out of the budget, and we needed the studio and a couple cameras and like all the things that you need, but some of the things were a bit nuanced. We had to work with a lot of children and stuff too. So this would have been, if I didn't think this way, not overwhelming, but a lot more work than it ended up being, because I always think of people and how I meet them and what they do, and not necessarily in the context of the industry. I actually knew a lot of potential people to reach out to from having spent a lot of time with underground comedians for the first few years that I spent in LA, going to shows with my buddy Brandon, and going to the Federal Bar in North Hollywood and meeting some of these sort of or going to the Haha Cafe and sitting there and even taping some of these guys' sets back then, and some of them have gone on to be quite successful comedians, all the way to some construction work that I used to do, and anyway, like all these little dots come together, and I'm thinking, well, this guy, we could bring him in to do this, and you hit him up, and this, didn't she say, this lady said, that she had like a pet store, and I wonder, if I call her, if she could bring a tarantula out. These are the things that it shocks me that how few people actually think that way when they're working on their own projects. So as you gather dots through life that seem random when you meet them, and this could be locations and homes and houses and your uncle who owns a barn and your friend who has chickens and all these little things in your life, pay attention to them. I guess that's the takeaway. Pay attention to who's in your life and don't discount it. If you live in a small town, what's the benefit? Who do you know? What can you do that's difficult for somebody like me to do who lives in LA? There are a lot of things that always finding what, the interest in something that somebody has, and if you find something unique about a certain somebody, or they have something interesting, shelve it, keep it in there somewhere, because at some point, if you continue to think this way, those dots will all come together and it'll create a better, more effective, or creative project, or it'll be easier for you to execute because you have those things that you can pull, and the combination of those dots is unique to you. And so now when you layer all these three things together, the innovative thinking in the sense of trying to find better ways and more efficient ways to do things, and layer that with empathetic thinking, which will allow you to analyze a situation from both sides of a conversation and help understand how other people think and make that effort, and connecting all the dots in your life that you can somehow pull together on any given project that you don't even know will come yet, but once it's in front of you, you will see like, oh, well, these things combined could be a really cool addition or help or make this project sing. Those three things combined help you become a better producer and media creator in general. And it allows you to have faith in your own way of doing something, because you have you come from a place of wanting to be efficient and effective and disruptive. So you're thinking about, well, how is what I'm doing here better? How is what I'm saying sparking curiosity? Is it presenting a new approach on something? So when you work with business owners, oftentimes people think, well, I just need to make the ad that they want. Let's say if you do commercials. But you can also help them come up with a better way to present an offer that they have that they haven't thought of yet. And that'll help them drive sales, which will make you more valuable and innovative, because it's not an angle that they thought they should present or explore, or didn't even realize that they could do that. Because what business owners usually do is they look at other businesses and see what works and kind of do what they do. So to innovate in marketing, that is important. So you come in with a unique perspective because you've taken the time to look at what they do and how it might be presented in a way where it separates itself or presents a better solution to its competitors. You've thought about the audience they're discussing, they're reaching out to with this, because you're kind of looking at, well, who are we talking to with this, and what do they think, what are they going through, why do they need this, why would they buy this? So if you start thinking like that, you create something that's for the audience. Why would they be entertained by this film? Who is this for? Like, why would people like the millennial job interview, the viral video that we did? Well, it resonated with a lot of people who have a lot of job interviews. And then, how can I connect the dots to make this the best possible project, and in the most efficient way, through leveraging people that I know and things that I have in my Rolodex. Those three things combined make you a better, more innovative producer, problem solver, media business owner. I hope it helps. I hope it just kind of helps you, think about things a little bit more in a personalized way for you, and just trust who you are, where you are, and what you do, and know that there's something in there that's very unique that nobody else can replicate. And if you actually trust that and believe in that and leverage it and refine that process and add to that a good quality of production and a good team and a good sales process, you will have a very unique business that really there is no competition for, because it brings what only you can bring through your way of thinking, your innovation, the way you kind of process and problem solve, and through your unique dots that only you can connect. Hope it helps. We'll see you on the floor.